Hey, welcome to the Stone Zone. So, the men's rights movement is growing fast, and organizing, and planning. As most of us are all too aware, at least half of our battle is against the feminist war on the basic rights of men and boys, the feminist war on fathers, the feminist war on families, and the feminist war on male-female relationships. As a consequence of this, it is very easy to portray the men's rights movement as a negative movement, or as a backlash movement, with no serious commitment to progress, or coherent principles, or justice. But nothing could be further from the truth. So then, why are we so anti-feminist, and why do we focus on men's rights? Well, of course, we don't focus on either men's rights or on feminism, as individuals, do we? Because as individuals, we can each be many other things in addition to being an MRA. But the MRM, of course, must have a focus, by definition, since all movements are focused on whatever it is that they happen to be focused on. Our movement has some important work to do for the moment, and when that's no longer the case, we can just fade into vigilant watchdog mode. Some of us find it necessary, or productive, or worthwhile to upset feminists, or even to mock them, and to trigger a hostile reaction from them. And that is not hard to do, after all, since the vocal ones seem to have borderline personality disorder. But some of us don't agree with this approach. For those who don't like to be rude or confrontational, but who still want to fight feminism, there is also another path. But you're going to have to discover that path for yourself because I can't help you. You see, I'm a male, and I haven't checked my privilege recently, but I've been told that my privilege is way too big to offer an opinion on one of these gender issues. So I really don't have anything relevant or credible to say on these matters. But if you still want some advice, I do have a very good friend in a very high and very dry place. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll play a tune on my ancient Atacama phone to summon Kudi. Over the ages, Kudi has been oppressed so much that his voice has become the most adorable voice on earth. So it seems fair to let Kudi weigh in on this important topic.
Hello there! Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Kudi, and I'm a mystical rodent activist. I call myself an MRA for short. I'm not a men's rights activist myself, nor am I human, but I've been observing other MRAs for eons. I know that MRAs are already familiar with many of the problems that feminism is causing. But this mystical rodent thinks that it's important to also consider the positive side of feminism. Feminism finds some lost and damaged souls and gives them a sense of purpose. Feminism finds some of the nagging questions that trouble the inquiring mind, and it answers them. Feminism finds ambitious people, and it gives them praise, respectable careers, and financial stability. Given that feminism has all of that going for it, you had better be prepared for war if you're going to try to oppose feminism openly and directly. I know that humans are fairly social creatures, and that most of you would prefer to get along. I also know that, at first, humans don't always see what a cootie pie I really am. You humans have run away screaming at the sight of me more times than I can count. But I don't blame you. The men's rights movement is growing, and there is safety in numbers. But for those MRAs who would rather avoid confronting feminism head-on, I have another, more radical approach in mind. Feminists spread lots of false and misleading information to many people, but the factual accuracy of those statistics and myths is only of trivial importance. What gives these statistics their power is that they serve to confirm the validity of the feminist ideology once it has already taken root in the mind. We rodents like to say that a whisker of prevention is worth a paw of cure. The easiest way to destroy feminism would be to prevent it from taking root in the mind in the first place. But to do that, we will first need to send a message to the children so that their minds can effectively resist and reject this toxic ideology. The educational system is failing the human children. It is feeding them disposable knowledge and filler and busy work, and it can no longer satisfy their innate curiosity. This gives us an opportunity to introduce some very basic concepts, which are very easy to learn and very difficult to forget. Basic concepts which are incompatible with feminist ideology. I have identified 5 radical notions which will really chew at the wires of the feminist fortress. On its own, each of these radical notions will have a utility that goes well beyond merely subverting feminism. But when combined, their net effect should result in the controlled demolition of feminism. Radical notion number 1. Life. Humans and rodents are both animals, and we really do have a lot in common. We all seek immortality in our own way. The gene-centered view of evolution has much to offer in terms of explaining what life is and why animals behave as they do. This view is not to be mistaken as a justification for injustice. It is simply a source of valuable insight. Let's teach the young ones the radical notion that life exists because it wants to exist, and that life wants to exist because it exists. If the children understand that the fundamental needs and goals of both sexes are shared, then they will laugh when feminists try to tell them that they are alienated, or oppressed, or privileged merely by virtue of their sex. Radical notion number 2. Reason. Humans can be so good with reason, but only when they want to be. Give the children a passion for reason. The young ones are capable of understanding and appreciating the power of logic and reason. Let's teach them the importance of adopting universal principles and how to recognize a contradiction. Teach them how to use basic logic and how to spot the most common logical fallacies. Teach them the radical notion that there is no shame in being wrong as long as you make an honest effort to be right. Feminism would get nowhere without guilt by association, ad hominem arguments, and straw man arguments. We need to weaken the power of these fallacies and show the children how reason can be used to benefit themselves and others. Radical notion number 3. Explanation. You humans sure do love to have all of the answers, don't you? But wouldn't you also like to know what you don't know? Let's give the young ones a dose of the Socratic method and a crash course on Karl Popper's notion of falsifiability, so that they can determine for themselves how and why to put an explanation to the test. Children can easily grasp the radical notion that hindsight is always 20/20. They already know that peeking at the answer key is cheating, after all. Science and skepticism should be viewed as a method of testing explanation, not a special club to belong to. Skepticism allows us to separate the frauds and con artists from the true prophets and sages. And so I predict that feminism will present with a healthy fear of skepticism, one that is not shared by the general population. Radical notion number 4. Economics. Human interaction can be demanding, but let's get some understanding. Let's teach the young ones the most basic concepts from microeconomics and game theory, so they can understand how market forces influence human values and priorities. They should understand how utility, complementation, and substitution affects value. Teach the children the radical notion that the deals that people agree to, and the choices that they make, are influenced by a mindless process which has no beliefs, no desires, and no intentions. You cannot bargain or reason with the market any more than you could bribe the cold, dry wind of the Atacama Desert. Even though some humans give the market power and authority and call it freedom, that doesn't mean that the market is a rational being. No rational being can be trusted with too much power and authority. The children should understand what a conflict is, what a zero-sum game is, what a positive-sum game is, and how to tell the difference. Feminists are always looking for the evil demon to blame for the economic phenomenon that they find unsatisfactory, and in the process, they just consolidate more power and foster more corruption. Radical notion number 5. Emotions. Humans are destined to be emotional masters, not emotional slaves. Let's give the young ones a deeper understanding of human psychology. Let them see that they really do need both pleasure and pain, love and hate, stress and boredom. Show them the hidden logic behind happiness, sadness, fear, anger, and disgust. Teach them why people experience boredom and why they laugh. Teach them about addiction and withdrawal. Teach them the radical notion that emotions are not an end in themselves. They are only a means to an end. Would anyone buy into the toxic feminist dogma about self-esteem and emotional honesty and emotional maturity and their general emotional obsession if they understood the proper role of emotions? This rodent thinks not. Notice that none of these radical notions appear to have anything to do with either feminism or men's rights. Most humans would not see anything terrifying about these radical notions, but radical feminists sure will. Some of you have probably inadvertently triggered the fury of a radical feminist or two, and wondered what you had done to deserve it. Well, it's probably because you were treading all over their precious ideology, without even realizing it. Such innocent-looking ideas are like kryptonite for feminist ideology, and it doesn't help them when they show the public how fearful and intolerant they really are. The challenge will be on how to get these radical notions into the mandatory high school and elementary school curriculum, not as anti-feminism 101, but as an integrated part of the pre-existing curriculum. So that we can minimize the damage, this should be done at the earliest possible opportunity, before the young ones decide on their interests and career path, and before feminist ideology has had a chance to take root in their minds. So to aspiring young radical rodents, I say, don't worry about chewing out the feminists for now, but chew on the wires, and give the young ones something radical to chew on. And to Man Boobs and his cats, I say, kiss my rodent ass. And to everyone else, I say, always remember, the truth will set you free. This is Kudi, the mystical rodent activist, signing off.